Whoever takes over next in Iran is not going to be as strong or as influential. What are the consequences of that?
Well, it also reflects the internal dynamics. We have different political divisions within Iran domestically. We have the variety of the different political opinions within the country, most significantly the opposition, which also has a variety of different opinions. But we also have the intra-elitist divisions, which we have noticed sometimes between the ruling elite, the supreme leader, the IRGC, the Basij, and even including a lot of different opinions between the religious establishment in Qum and the government in Tehran. However, the assassination of Khamenei, the former supreme leader, and the way he was assassinated in a very symbolic move by the U.S. and the Israeli coordinated strikes indicates that this is definitely a major downfall in the symbolic power that has been presented by the Islamic Revolution or the Islamic Republic of Iran since 1979, which means there is a very strong possibility that the upcoming supreme leader, if there were to be one to be nominated in the coming days, given the current circumstances, will find it very hard to fill his shoes.
Abbas, start with you. We obviously saw that story on Donald Trump and the expectations from him leading into this. Do you think, though, that after what we've seen in 5 days of this conflict, that Donald Trump and his administration expected it to escalate this quickly, this far, in just 5 days?
Not at all. I don't even assume that the Trump administration had a strategic and a constructive plan. It seems like there was only symbolic and strong punches along the run, trying to make a point rather than having a strategic plan here. The main strategy that seems to be a part of an overarching plan that actually worked is Netanyahu's ability to push Trump to drive the front seat of this war and dragging other countries in the region, such as the GCC states, and making it an existential threat to their national security and not only Iran. Of course, this level of direct military confrontation between the United States and Iran is something unique to this region following decades of minimized confrontational acts, whether it was diplomatic or through the economic sanctions, which would naturally translate into many surprises, and which will even translate surprises from the Iranian sides, where they weren't even necessarily aware that some of the things that would have pushed them to do, which includes directly attacking and targeting the GCC states. Because in all honesty, the Iranian regime is no longer targeting only the U.S. interest in the region or Israel, as it claims. It is completely and directly targeting the national security of the GCC, which makes it even a further existential crisis for Iran post this war, if this regime were to survive and remain in the picture, given that it heavily relied on a lot of the diplomatic efforts of the GCC neighbours.
Yeah, the ramifications are going to be widespread regardless. Zeidon, if I can go back to you, you mentioned this a little earlier on in our discussion, talking about how Iran is now starting to strike civilian targets here in the Gulf. We've seen airports in Dubai, hotels, apartment buildings, as well as its energy infrastructure. I mean, do you think that Tehran is calculating that if it imposes a high enough cost on its neighbours here in the Gulf, that they will push for de-escalation? And do you think that that is a strategy that is likely to work for them?
That's the first point that comes on the mind, given the fact that they are claiming that they are targeting interests that are existing in the GCC that are relevant to the further enemy, which is the United States in this case. But in reality, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, Kuwait, many of these GCC states have actively and publicly televised through the media, been involved in creating these mediation efforts up until the last minute. The decision, the unilateral decision within this limited alliance between the Netanyahu's administration and Trump's administration had nothing to do with the mediation efforts and the commitment from the GCC side to ensure a limited escalation taking place, to ensure and advocate to the United States a limited military strike, or not even a military strike at all in Iran, despite the hostility and the problematic relations that did exist between some of these GCC states and the Iranian government today. But it seems like it's a very simplified strategy from the Iranian side, where if there were to be an existential threat facing the current regime in Tehran. They would rather having a regional or a regional-wide escalation that would make the entire region, given that strategic partners do exist in the GCC today, would put so much enough efforts to push the United States to ensure that such an escalation wouldn't take place. But we all know that the GCC efforts and the commitment to end this war or even prevent this war from the first place didn't work. Therefore, it wouldn't be fair to assume that the Iranian attacks on the GCC is completely limited to the idea of pushing them to convince the Americans to stop the war. It seems like there is a way stronger intention from the Iranian governmental side that they do in some way or another enjoy witnessing a decreasing economic influence within the region as they face this existential threat themselves.
Yeah, just another one of the ramifications to this conflict. Thank you so much, Zeidon. We appreciate it. Wolfgang and